Good evening. I would like to call to order the Raymore Board of Adjustments meeting on Wednesday, September 13th at 6 p.m. Could you please take roll call?
Sure. Board Member Velasco, when she is absent. Board Member Martin.
Here.
Board Member Harrison.
Here.
Board Member Bailey.
Here.
Board Member Woods.
Here.
And Chairman Hatcher.
Here. Next, if everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda, any personal appearances? I note none. Next item is the consent agenda, and that is for the approval of the minutes from the August 9th, 2023 meeting. If everyone's had an opportunity to review those, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Is there any unfinished business? Hearing none, we'll move forward. New business, case number 23034, Elite Fence and Deck fencing variance. We will be holding a public hearing. The public hearing will now begin at 6:01. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant? Mr. Lent, would you like to come forward? If you'll state your name and your address, please, for the record.
Okay, Kevin Lint, Elite Fence at 611 East Walnut Street. We'd like to expand our lot there behind the Freedom Stop is our goal, as we just built and renovated the old Genco building. We'd like to get some more space there, and I think there's a plan that you guys probably have of maybe a future building that I would build either for Elite Fence or a different investment or something at the present time. But at the time, we just need to take that lot just for some storage. We got into temporary fencing and need a place to store everything we got coming in.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the public? No. We will now close the public hearing at 6:03. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. We will not close the public hearing yet. Staff report.
Thank you, and good evening. Tonight you have in front of you a variance request to allow for an 8-foot security type chain link fence to be constructed in a C3 regional commercial district that's slatted. This property is located east of South Sunrise Drive and north of Don Street. You'll see in the report just site photos from the looking from the east, north, and the south. Existing zoning is C3 regional commercial district, with it existing zoning to the north of being C3, to the south is R3A, to the east is light industrial of M1, and to the west is C2 general commercial district. The growth management plan identifies this area as appropriate for business park development, and the major street plan identifies South Sunrise Drive as a local road and Down Street as a local road. As this is a public hearing, the notice was advertised in the Northcast Herald on August 23rd, 2023, and want to enter into the record a list of exhibits 1 through 6, and that would be mailed notices of adjoining property owners, the notice of publication, the Unified Development Code, the application, the growth management plan, and the staff report. There's a little bit of history with this property as it dates back to 1979 when the final plat was approved as part of the subject property. More recently, you'll notice on July 19th of 2022, the Planning Commission voted to approve a site plan for Ascend, which is just to the south. Also, the final plat was then approved on August 8th of 2022 for the same project. To the immediate east, which is kind of the tie-in for tonight's project, is Elite Fence and Deck, in which they were approved as part of a site plan on November 15th of 2022, and then a final plat following that in December of 2022. There's quite a bit of comments that I wanted to go over tonight, so bear with me on that. Notices of the request were mailed to 9 adjoining property owners, and no objections or concerns were raised. You'll have in your packet a concept plan that shows short-term and long-term goals for the applicant. The short-term that we're really discussing tonight is the fence that surrounds kind of the adjacent property to the existing business at 611 Walnut. One thing I wanted to mention as well is staff did identify an oversight on our end. So one of the items that the applicant will need to do is come back with a variance of use. As if you go into our use table, it is his business is currently construction, sales, and service, which is permitted in M1, but what would not be currently in the C3. So that would be a variance of use request that would actually come in front of you. Depending upon the deadline, it could be seen next month. So, if the request is approved tonight, the applicant would apply for a fence permit and provide all the documentation as required and pay associated permit fees. The applicant could have requested for this property to be rezoned, which would have allowed this fence to be constructed regardless if the rezoning was approved, and that would have been rezoning it from C3 to M1 light industrial. One thing you'll notice tonight is that there was one application. However, there's 3 separate requests within the application. However, staff felt that it was appropriate to identify this as one, as it's all under the same Unified Development Code within the 440.030. The first request is to construct a chain link fence that's slatted in a commercially zoned property. The second request is to construct a fence that's 8 foot instead of a 6 foot that would be allowed in a commercial zone property now. And then the third request is to construct a security type fence that is only allowed in industrial areas. Because of the subject property being separate from properties of the west and south right away, which is Sunrise Drive and Don Street, screening is not required in these areas. However, with the request of the variance tonight, screening from adjacent properties would be required and would need to comply with section 430.080, the screening requirements. A type A landscaping buffer would be required along Don Street as it abuts a property that's zoned R3A. And then Sunrise Drive would also be required to have plantings. A type C screening would also be looked at during the site plan approval, as that would be another step for the applicant with more of their long-term goals with the building. So when they come forward for a site plan, we'd also look at those landscaping requirements then. Finally tonight, with the concurring vote of 4 members would be required in order for this to move forward. Staff does submit their proposed findings of fact and determine that the request was reasonable upon the extension of the existing fence from the property directly to the east, as the subject property is shown on the concept plan. City staff feels that the request from the applicant is to meet their short and long-term goals, and that by rezoning the property would actually do a little more harm than good in this case. So after submitting our proposed findings of fact, we recommended the Board of Adjustments to approve case number 23034, Elite Fence and Deck screening variance. Staff will be happy to answer any questions, and this concludes staff report.
Thank you.
Dylan, I have a question. So are we saying that this doesn't meet the requirements then because of the zoning?
So correct. They're here in front of you tonight because of the zoning of the property. Staff felt that the request was appropriate given the fact that there's no real area for this business to expand except for the one vacant lot that exists. And so they're looking to obtain the property and expand their business, being able to provide additional services that they weren't able to before, be in the construction or temporary fencing, and felt that this was appropriate.
And then they felt that they would be able to accommodate the other screening requirements
That
based
is
on?
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, we're now going to close the public hearing at 6:10 PM. Do I have a motion on case number 23034, Elite Fence and Deck, fencing variance?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for case number 23034, Elite Fence and Lawn for fencing variance.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes for case number 23034, Elite Fence and Deck fencing variance. Thank you. Next is staff comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, you have in front of you just a couple of items that I wanted to make mention. You probably don't see the name tag right now, but Board Member Lindsay Foster has stepped down from her position, so there is a vacancy for an alternate position. Staff is actively looking to fill that position, but just wanted to make you all aware, so moving forward, we're not looking for her at future meetings.
Was that who was here last month?
No,
Okay,
that would
I think
be Board Member Velasco.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Also, as mentioned in the staff report, we will be having a meeting October the 11th, as long as the applicant submits their variance request by this Friday, actually. So I will be in touch if something changes, but go ahead and have that tentatively on your schedule. That concludes my staff report, but we'll hand this over to Mr. Gress for his staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For the board, although we've met 2 months in a row now, I did still want to go over the monthly report, just highlight some things within the department for the month of August. I think at the last meeting I mentioned we had a little bit of a slow start with the permits this year, but we did have 13 detached single-family permits issued last month, so it was a fairly busy month in terms of permitting construction, which was good to see. And then we did issue one commercial permit for a new business that's looking to open here in town. It's the property that's at 214 West Walnut. Is the future location of a business called the Quilted Cow, and I've learned very quickly from those individuals just how large the quilting community is, and so they've spent a lot of time and effort and resources improving that building. I think they just painted it last week, so it's no longer the brown building with a red roof, it's the tan building with a red roof that I can tell people is on that side of town. So really excited to see that project moving forward. Also down the road from there a little bit at 213 North Madison, which was the former Odell's discount store, which did close. There is an individual looking to locate Wheelhouse Baseball Clinic, which was a former business in the city on the east side of town, closer to J Highway. They moved away for a few years and are now coming back. So they're doing some interior work on that building right now and should be open here in a few months for their business, which is exciting to see. And then additionally, the Starbucks there at 1631 West Foxwood, you probably noticed a little bit of a delay. They did finish the exterior work for the most part, but they did start on Monday the interior finish and the tenant finish work with that project. So I think they told our economic development director that they hope to be open by December of this year. So a few months behind of the original schedule, but still moving right along. Additionally, a couple things to highlight just staff-wise. Our JS coordinator, I shared this with the council. She was invited, Heather Eisenbarth, she was invited to attend a pilot course with the Mid-America Regional Council relative to regional data. So Ms. Eisenbarth deals with the majority of the data that the city utilizes in our department. So it's really neat that she was able to participate in a pilot program with Mark. So I wanted to highlight that. And then additionally, our code enforcement officer, Drayton Vogel, also attended the annual conference of code enforcement in Lake Ozark, Missouri, and came back with a lot of good information. So we're glad to see him out and about expanding his education. That would conclude my staff report.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Did you have it? Okay, thank you. Do any of the board members have any comments? Nothing? Wonderful. Okay, well, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting adjourned at 6:15. Thank you all very much. See you all next month. Quick, sweet.
You've been up to the last couple months.